we're going to be touring the south by taking US 41. Come on, let's go! Alright everyone, today we're going to be rebooting another one of my early videos. This one is US Highway 41, or the southern half, which is from Miami all the way up to the Kentucky and Indiana border. I did this video back in December of 2023, mainly for a sports event, so I missed a lot of the stuff, so that's what today's video is all about. We're going to be showing a lot more mileage time, and a little bit of scenery too along US 41. So let us get started with this reboot video. But first, you're watching TheDerpHog, where I make highways content on all sorts of different topics. If you've been enjoying it, be sure to hit that like button. And if you've been really enjoying it, be sure to smash that subscribe button so you're notified on all future videos. And if you really want to help out the channel, become a member today, where you get custom cool emojis, early access to future videos, along with one free extra request per month. And if you don't want to become a member, you can always just pay $3 for a intersection request in future videos. Those highways will be listed down in the description below, and I'll make sure to shout you out when that video releases. So let's get on with the highway. As you can see here, this is the map of US 41 we're going to be covering part of today. We're going to be doing it from its southern terminus in Miami, Florida, all the way up to the Indiana and Kentucky border at Evansville, Indiana. So with that, we're going to be talking about northbound US 41. So you begin here at the US 1 and 41 junction in downtown Miami, where we get a shield for US 41, but it looks like that the arrow is missing, so it looks like that we're just already on US 41 when that is not the case. And when we turn on to US 41 proper, we do get a reassurance shield for US 41 westbound. And it looks like that is being covered by this tree right now. And then further up the road, we can see that we're going to be passing under Interstate 95, and only southbound US 41 lanes has access to Interstate 95, sadly. And here we meet our first child route, US Highway 441, and we will become concurrent with US 441 later up the road. Here is Florida Highway 9, southwest 27th Avenue, and this road will actually take you up to Hard Rock Stadium, so that is pretty cool. And on the outskirts of Miami, we are meeting Florida Highway 826, also known as the Palmetto Expressway, and it gets signed north to the airport, while southbound just gets north. And here's our last major junction within the Miami metro area before we're going to be entering into the Everglades. And we can see that there is a mileage sign up ahead, so let us see what it's signed. We get Marco Island on the top line from 85 miles away and Naples from 89. So there's literally nothing within the Everglades, so it makes sense that they're both, or control cities are super far away. And here in the Everglades, we're meeting with Florida Highway 29. And we can see that we get another mileage sign with Naples from the top line and Fort Myers now as our primary from 69 miles away. And here in Naples, we can see that we're now getting signed north for Fort Myers, which is a good choice. In our next mileage sign, we do get Fort Myers from 22 miles away. And after going through a couple of smaller towns, we're now getting our first 3-line mileage sign with Tampa on the bottom line from 132 miles away. And here we meet with Florida Highway 78 here in Fort Myers, and we can see that there's another mileage sign up ahead. Now you get Punta Gorda on the top line and Sarasota as our primary from 68 miles away, which kind of makes sense because we are paralleling Interstate 75, and if you want to get to Tampa from here, it's faster to get onto 75 by taking these multiple highways to get there. But a ways up the road, we now get Tampa as our primary once again from 118 miles away, so that is pretty cool. And here in Punta Gorda, we meet the southern terminus of US Highway 17. And if you want to check out a series on US 17, it's in the top right corner here, or down in the description below. And after passing US 17 and going through Punta Gorda, we get another mileage sign with Port Charlotte on the top line from 4 miles away. and to Tampa from 101 miles away. Here we meet Florida Highway 681, which is a short road that will take you over to Interstate 75, being signed for Tampa, which is a good choice. Here we are meeting Florida Highway 72, which is being signed for Arcadia and Siesta Key respectively. And here we meet the southern terminus of US Highway 301, which will take you to downtown Bradenton. As US 41, and we're now getting signed for a couple of keys here on the Gulf of America side of Florida. And here we also meet with Florida Highway 70 here, still in the Siesta Key area. And here you can see that US 301 is now going to be merging back into us, and we're now going to be concurrent as we cross over the Manatee River. Now we're meeting with Florida Highway 64, which is being signed west for Beaches and east for, well, 41 and 301 are now being signed for Tampa respectively, which is good. And here's where US 301 splits off from US 41 for good, as it is being signed for Ellington now. I mean, I don't personally like that choice. If you want to learn more about US 301, the series is down in the description below. And after splitting off from US 301, we now get a sign telling us that we're going to be meeting the southern terminus of US 19 in a mile, and it will take you up to the Sunshine Skyway and St. Petersburg. And here's that meeting with US Highway 19, as US 19 will take you to Interstate 275 and to St. Pete, while US 41 is going to be heading north towards Tampa. Also, US 41 will also take you to Interstate 275. It's just the reason why I believe FDOT signing is because US 19 actually has a concurrency with 275 and will take you to downtown St. Pete. And here is US 41 meeting with Interstate 275 here, being signed for St. Pete and to Interstate 75 respectively. I do like that northbound control city, and actually I was first mad about this, but then I kind of agree that 275 south to Interstate 75 kind of makes sense, because if you want to go on either direction of 75, you do have the option, unlike 475 up in the Macon area. And after passing Interstate 275, we do get another mileage sign with Tampa from 32 miles away. And here, once we entered the Tampa metro area, we actually get another mileage sign, and now getting signed for, this is a very odd choice. Why are we being signed for Lake City from almost 200 miles away? Lake City's not like Tampa or Miami or Jacksonville. It's not like a major city that needs to be signed from over 200 miles away. Like, this is just an odd mileage sign to me. And here we are meeting the Selman Expressway here in the outskirts of Tampa. And now we're meeting with Florida Highway 60, which will actually take you over to the Tampa International Airport here. And now we're meeting with Interstate Highway 4, which will take you towards Orlando or back to downtown Tampa respectively. Also, Interstate 4 will also take you over to St. Pete too. And then whenever a highway meets Interstate 4, US 92 is already close to it, so here we are going to be joining with US 92 for a short time on Hillsborough Avenue. And here's where we split off from US 92, as that'll take you over to Interstate 275, while US 41 is going to be passing through the eastern half of the northern Tampa suburbs. And here in one of these suburbs, we meet with Florida Highway 580 here, so that's pretty cool. And also, look at all these signs and stuff. It's just a really busy intersection. And here we are actually going to under Interstate 275, and we do not have an interchange with it, unlike we did at its southern terminus. Now we're meeting with Florida Highway 54, and let us see what we're signed for on Florida 54. We're now getting signed for Land O'Lakes, which I think is an alright choice. It's a pretty sizable place. Plus, anything else beyond it is kind of too far to sign. But here in Land O'Lakes, we're now getting signed for Musarack Town as our next control city. You want to know what Musarack Town is? It's an unincorporated community. Why in the world is FDOT signing an unincorporated community on a major US highway? That should be Brooksville. Sign Brooksville, FDOT. Luckily, our next mileage time, we do get Brooksville as our primary from 17 miles away, and Muswarick Town is our top line from only 9. That's where it belongs. And here on the outskirts of Brooksville, we meet with Florida Highway 50, which will take you over to either Ridge Manor or Weeki Wachee. Now we're meeting with US Highway 98 here, and US 98 will take you up to Homosassa Springs, while we're going to be concurrent with 98 South for Floral City. And here we actually meet with US Highway 98. And then our next mileage time, we now get Floral City in the top line from 15 miles away, and Inverness from 21. And here in Inverness, we're going to be joining with Florida Highway 44. Here we're going to have a short concurrency with it as we head through town. And here we get a North Carolina 50-55 situation where we have 2 separate control cities being signed at the same distance, which I think is a good choice because Florida 44 is concurrent with US 41. Now if this was just US 41 proper, then I would not like that at all, but at least this is a correct way to use this kind of mileage sign. And after splitting off from Florida 44, we're now getting signed for Dunlean still from 18 miles away. And on our way to Dunlean, we actually meet with Florida Highway 200 here, so that's pretty cool. Our next mileage time, we now get Williston as our primary from 36 miles away, which I agree with because that's where we meet with US 27. And our next mileage time, Lake City comes back, but this time it's only 78 miles away instead of 178. Yeah, I still don't know why FDOT was signing it from like 170 miles away. And here in Williston, we now are meeting with US 27 and Florida Highway 121 here. We're now going to be concurrent with it as we head through downtown Williston. And our next mileage time, we now get Gainesville as our primary from 18 miles away. This is actually favoring Florida 121, and I actually agree with this choice. As a Florida State fan, I do not like Gainesville, but as a control city enthusiast, I do like it being our primary. Here's where Florida 121 splits off from US 27 and 41 as it heads up towards Gainesville, and we're going to be continuing north towards High Springs. In our next mileage time, we now get Lake City still as our primary from 59 miles away. And what? I didn't know we were back in North Carolina. And here's where US 27 finally splits off from US 41 as it will continue north towards Perry and Tallahassee, while US 41 is now going to be continuing north towards US 441 and Lake City. And here we are meeting with US 441, and we're now going to be concurrent with it as we head north towards Lake City. In fact, on the next mileage time, we now get Lake City from 26 miles away as our secondary, and Jasper, Florida as our primary from 56. If you want to sign something beyond Lake City, Jasper is a good choice because it's decently sized and anywhere north of basically Lake City. And here we are meeting with Interstate 75, and no, that Lake City is not for 75 northbound. That is actually for 41 and 441. While 75 southbound is in time for Alachua. I do not like that choice. That either should be Gainesville or Ocala or Tampa. Anything but Alachua. Also, why is there no love for 75 northbound here? Come on, FDOT. In our next mileage time, we now get White Springs. What happened to Jasper? White Springs is significantly smaller than Jasper. Come on, bring back Jasper, FDOT. And once we reach the Lake City outskirts, we're now splitting off from US 441 for good, as US 41 will be heading into downtown. And here in downtown Lake City, we meet with US Highway 90, which is the parallel road to Interstate 10. And US 90 also meets US 441, and guess what is on the US 441 and US 90 junction? We actually have a couple of error shields. One, FDOT has downgraded US 441 back to State Route 441, while US 90 has the 3-digit US Highway shield instead of the proper 2-digit one. And on our next mileage sign back on US 41 proper, we now get Valdosta as our primary from 63 miles away, which is an awesome choice. And here we meet with Interstate 10 being signed for Live Oak in Jacksonville. Jacksonville is a great choice for eastbound, while that Live Oak should definitely be Tallahassee. No one is going to Live Oak, Florida. People are going to be taking time to get to Tallahassee. Also, why are we being signed for White Springs? I thought we were being signed for Jasper and Valdosta. Why is White Springs coming back? And here in White Springs, we are now getting signed for Jennings. Jennings is the last town in Florida. I do not like that choice at all. That should definitely be Valdosta, FDOT. You were signing it in Lake City. Why are you now avoiding it on US 41? Here we meet with US 129 for the first time, and US 129 and 41 are going to be concurrent as they head through the town of Jasper. In our next mileage time, Valdosta does come back from 36 miles away. Well done. And here's where US 129 splits off from US 41, as US 41 is now going to be continuing north towards Valdosta. And US 129 is another road that I'd like to do someday. Looks pretty cool. And we're now entering into our second state, Georgia. So let us see what Georgia has to offer on US 41. Our first mileage time, we do get Valdosta from 18 miles away. So well done, GDOT, for recognizing Valdosta. And here in Valdosta, we meet both US 84 and US 221. And 221 is actually going to be concurrent with us as we head around the city of Valdosta. And here is the junction where US 221 leaves us, as US 41 is continuing north towards Interstate 75. And here, joining with Interstate 75, as it is being signed for Macon and Valdosta respectively. I mean, that Valdosta should be like either Gainesville or Ocala or Tampa, but that Macon is alright, but Atlanta would be preferred. Also, it looks like in the background we do get a cool US 41 historic shield, so that is awesome. But too bad these control cities are ruining the vibe. And after a short concurrency with Interstate 75, we split off from it as we're now getting signed for Barney and Lakeland. Interesting. But our next mileage time, or one-liner here, we get Adele from 11 miles away. And here in Adele or Adele, we are now getting signed for Tifton, which is a great choice. In our next mileage time, we do get Tifton as our primary from 22 miles away, along with Sparks and Lennox. Here in Tifton, we meet with US 319 and US Highway 82, as US 41 is now going to continue north to other small towns along Interstate 75 corridor. Here, we're now meeting with Georgia Highway 32, and we're now getting signed for Cordele as our next control city, which is a good choice. And here in Cordele, we meet with US Highway 280 here, and US 41 is now going to be continuing north towards other places. Mileage time, we actually get Vienna on the top line from 9 miles away, and Hawkinsville from 32. Hawkinsville is actually on Georgia Highway 237. We haven't met yet, so why is GDOT favoring Georgia Highway 237? I mean, Hawkinsville is a decently sized town, but why is it being favored over another place on US Highway 41? It doesn't make sense. And here in Vienna, we're now getting signed for Unadilla as our next control city. I decided to skip ahead to the Perry area because there's absolutely no signage in Unadilla. So here in Perry, we're now losing Georgia Highway 7 after being concurrent with it for a long time. And US 41 is now going to be continuing north towards Macon. In fact, we do get Macon as a 1-line mileage sign from 27 miles away while still in Perry, so that is pretty cool. And on the outskirts of Perry, we meet with US Highway 341, another one of our children here. And 41 and Georgia 11 are going to continue north towards Macon. But our next mileage time, we get Macon on the top line from 25 miles away and Forsyth from 47. If you want to sign something beyond Macon, Forsyth is actually a good choice because, once again, it's a decently sized town. Here are we with US 129 and Georgia Highway 247 on the outskirts of Macon. And we can see that it is being signed for Macon here in the distance, because we're going to be joining with it. And then we split off from US Highway 129 before we get to downtown Macon, as US 129 will take you into downtown, while US 41 is going to be going on the western side of the city. Here are we with US Highway 80, which I actually did a series on a few months ago, which you can check out in the top right corner here, or down in the description below. And also in Macon, we meet with Interstate 475 here, which is being signed north to Interstate 75. I mean, yes, that is correct, because the 75 and 475 junction is literally right north of here. But since you can only go northbound on 75, I would like to see Atlanta there as a control city instead of 275. And this here is in Forsyth, as we're now getting signed for Barnesville as our next control city, which is a great choice. And here we meet the northern terminus of US 341, and US 41 is now going to continue north towards Barnesville. And here in Barnesville, we're now getting signed for Griffin, which is a great choice, because that's where we reunite with US Highway 19. And this here is still in the Barnesville area, in a random junction here, we can see that GDOT is accidentally signing the wrong highway here. That is supposed to be US 41, because US 341's northern terminus is actually 2 miles south of here, so I don't know why GDOT has this random 341 shield at a random junction off of US 41. That's just super funny. Anyways, skipping ahead to Griffin, we're now going to be joining with US Highway 19, and US 19 and 41 are now going to be concurrent as we head towards Atlanta. Oh boy, here we get this really bad mileage sign once again, with Sunnyside on the top line and Hampton from 7 miles away. I had to show this again because of how terrible it is. And luckily here in Hampton, we're now getting signed north for Atlanta, which is a great choice. And on the outskirts of Atlanta, in the southern suburbs, we're meeting with Interstate 285 here, which has no control cities, interestingly. And now we're meeting with Interstate 85, and we just have a southbound exit and northbound entrance for the major X5 interstate. We are going under Interstate 20, but we do have a indirect exit with it, as I got a picture of it when I went through Atlanta last October, and we can see that there is an exit for US 19 and 29, but US 41 seems to be absent from that sign. Now we're going to be joining with US 29, 19, and 41, as these three highways are going to be concurrent as we head towards downtown Atlanta. And we can see that we're now having the Atlanta skyline come into view, so that is awesome. And here we have a major attraction here in the Atlanta area, Mercedes-Benz Stadium, and this actually was requested by Ryan Golden, as she has been to the stadium before to watch a US women's soccer match inside the stadium, so thank you for that request. Anyways, we're now meeting with US 78 and US 278, and it looks like that after 2 years, GDOT has not fixed this error shield. Come on, we're in a major city, why can't that be actual US 278, GDOT? And after that, US 19 and Georgia 9 are splitting off from us, as US 41 is now going to be heading north through the northern Atlanta suburbs. And before we enter into the northern Atlanta burbs, we can see that we have 3 more interchanges with Interstate 75. Or technically, we've been having a bunch of interchanges with 75, but we have 3 more here in the Atlanta metro area. And after those 3 more interchanges with Interstate 75, we're now meeting with Interstate 285 on the north side of the city. So after passing by Interstate 285 on the north side of Atlanta, we've passed by this little street. Guess what this little street takes you to?
Go Braves! Go Braves!
Yes, it's Truist Park, where the home of the Atlanta Braves. Go Braves! And after passing by the Braves Park, we're now meeting Georgia Highway 120 here in the heart of Marietta, Georgia. And here in Marietta, we're now getting signed north for Kennesaw as our next control city, which is an alright choice because it's a major town still within the Atlanta metro area. Plus, if you want to go anywhere beyond these small or decently sized towns, you would be taking Interstate 75 anyways. And here's a strange thing. US 41 has one of those digital signs that tell you how far we are to get to our next place. That's pretty awesome, actually. Here in Cartersville, we're now meeting with US Highway 411, and US 411 is going to be concurrent with US 41. And here's where we split off from US Highway 411, as US 411 is going to Rome, Georgia. Not the Rome, that is actually east of here. And at Ram Junctions now we're getting signed for Calhoun, which is a great choice. But we do get a one-liner for Calhoun from only 4 miles away. I mean, you could also put on like Dalton or anything else besides Calhoun as a one-liner. And here we meet with Georgia Highway 53 connector here in the heart of Calhoun. And I actually want to point out this Dairy Queen here because I've actually been at that Dairy Queen. Stopped at it when I was moving from Huntsville to Raleigh, North Carolina in 2012. It was a pretty cool Dairy Queen. Though the sign looks a lot different than it did like 13 years ago. On the north side of Calhoun, we're meeting with Interstate 75 here, and you can see that US 41 is just getting signed north for Osaka. You definitely have room to put on Dalton there, G-Dot. Why isn't Dalton on this sign? I mean, yes, it'd be faster to take 75 up to Dalton, but we do not need one place here on a major exit. Come on. Skipping ahead to the Dalton area, we meet with US Highway 76, and the rest of US 76 is actually concurrent with US 41 northbound here. In our next mileage shine, we get Ringgold as our next primary from 18 miles away, which makes sense because if you want to get to Chattanooga, once again, it's faster to take Interstate 75. But once we get closer to Ringgold, we actually do get Chattanooga as our primary now from 21 miles away, so that is awesome. In fact, after going through downtown Ringgold, we get a one-liner for Chattanooga from 16 miles away. And then shortly after, we're now entering into the state of Tennessee. So let's see what Tennessee has to offer on US 41. And this is our last major interchange with Interstate 75, as US 41 north of here is going to be paralleling Interstate 24, Interstate 169, and Interstate 69. And we can see that 75 here is being signed for Atlanta and Chattanooga respectively. And here we are now going to be paralleling our next interstate, Interstate 24, which is being signed for Nashville and Birmingham respectively, which are great choices. And here we meet with US Highway 11 and 64, and we only get a shield for US 41 and 76 only. And this is the western terminus of US Highway 76 and the eastern terminus of US Highway 72. And US 41 is now going to be joining with US 72 here. And this is on the outskirts of the Chattanooga area. We meet the Lookout Mountain Road here, which will take you up to the Lookout Mountain site. I'd like to visit Lookout Mountain someday. I've heard that the views are absolutely stunning. Anyways, this is where US 11 finally splits off from US 41, 64, and 72, as US 11 is going to be heading back south into the state of Georgia. And here we are crossing over the Tennessee River, and we get this stunning view of it once again, as we saw in the US 72-76 eastbound video earlier this year. And after crossing the Tennessee River, we're now getting signed Jasper as our next control city. And it looks like that Tennessee 27 here is going to a town called Nickajack. And here in Jasper, we split off from US 72 and 64, as we're now going to be joining with Tennessee 28 as we head north towards Dunlap. And here's where we split off from Tennessee 28 as we're now getting signed for Tracy City. I mean, I prefer to see Monteagle instead because Tracy City is not that sizable. Anyways, here in Tracy City, we meet with Tennessee Highway 56, which is getting signed for Colmont and Altamont, while we're getting signed for Monteagle. So did T-Dot here decide, hey, let's just throw Mont onto everything here? Because all these three places have Mont in their name. And when we enter into the town of Monteagle, we get this sign. Wait, am I seeing this correctly?
You are perfect! Why are you so beautiful?
Is US 41 getting signed for Nashville and Memphis? With Chattanooga being on a sign here? This sign is like on par with the US 70 and 785 and 840 junction in Greensboro, and the mileage sign on US 71 being signed for Baton Rouge and New Orleans. This is like a super awesome sign. I do not know of any other instance here in the state of Tennessee where we get three of its biggest cities being signed on one side. This is awesome. Also, Memphis is like 300 miles west of here, so that is pretty awesome that it's being signed here in eastern Tennessee. That is awesome, T-Dot. This is totally a best sign deserved W. And still in Monteagle, we meet a 41 alternate here, which is a branch of US Highway 41. And our next mileage sign, we now get Nashville as our primary from 88 miles away, which is a great choice. So that is another awesome T.W. And here we meet with Interstate 24 on the outskirts of Manchester, getting signed for Nashville and Chattanooga respectively. And we can see that we're now paralleling Interstate 24, and we're literally right next to it for a short distance. Skipping ahead to the Murfreesboro area, we meet with US Highway 70S and 70S and 41 are now going to be concurrent as we head towards Nashville. Here we meet with US Highway 231 and are now going to have a short concurrency with US 231. And this is where US 231 joins with Tennessee Highway 96 as 41 and 70S are getting the Kentucky treatment, which I do not like at all. That should definitely be like a Nashville suburb or Nashville proper. Anyways, here we're meeting Interstate 840, which is being signed for Chattanooga and Knoxville respectively, which are great choices. And here we meet with Tennessee Highway 155 on the outskirts of the Nashville area, and we can see that is an emergency route for Interstate 40. Here we meet with both Interstate 40 and 24 as it's being signed for Chattanooga, Nashville, and Knoxville respectively. And here is the northern terminus of US 31 alternate as we're about to head into downtown Nashville. And here's that cool drawing with the 31, 41, and 70S roundabout. And I'm going to be skipping the 31 currency because I covered it in the last week, which you can check out in the top right corner here. And this is where 31 splits off into a 31E and 31W. We're actually going to be following Spring Street here. And here's where US 431 splits off from US 70. Here's where US 431 splits off from US 41 and 31W here. Here are we with Interstate 65 and Tennessee Highway 155 once again. And this is where 31W splits off from US 41, being signed for nothing. I do not like that choice at all. That either should be Franklin, Kentucky, or White House, Tennessee. Nothing. While we're getting signed north for Springfield, which is a great choice. Here are meeting with US Highway 431 once again, and we're now going to be concurrent with it as we head through Springfield. And here we're now meeting with Tennessee Highway 76 as we're now getting signed for Clarksville and Hopkinsville. Actually, that Clarksville is actually for Tennessee 76. We're getting signed for Hopkinsville. But we can see that we're also getting signed for Guthrie at this junction here too. Here we are entering the state of Kentucky at the Guthrie city limits sign. And here in the heart of Guthrie, we meet with US Highway 79 as we're now getting signed for Trenton, Kentucky. Weird. For our next mileage time, we do get Hopkinsville from 22 miles away, so at least Kentucky is consistent with that. And on the outskirts of Hopkinsville, we meet with Interstate 169 as we're going to be heading into downtown Hopkinsville. And here we meet with US Highway 68, and US 41 and 68 are going to be concurrent with each other. And here's where US 68 splits off from US 41, as US 41 is now going to be continuing north towards Madisonville. In fact, a random junction north of downtown, we're now getting signed for Madisonville, which is a cool choice. And on our way to Madisonville, we actually meet with US Highway 62 here in one of these smaller towns in Kentucky. And here in the heart of Madisonville, we're meeting with Interstate 69. And once again, we're right close to it, like how we were with Interstate 24 down in Tennessee. Our next mileage time, we now get Henderson as our primary from 37 miles away, which is a cool choice. And we still get Henderson after we're going through downtown Madisonville. And this here is where we're going to be joining with Interstate 69, and it looks like that Google Street View hasn't caught up to it yet, but Interstate 69 does continue north beyond this junction here with US 41. And here we meet with the Audubon Parkway, which will take you over to Owensboro, Kentucky. And this here is the current northern terminus of Interstate 69 Central, as US 41 is going to be continuing north into downtown Henderson and up towards Evansville too, so good choices. And here we meet with US Highway 60 getting signed for Owensboro and Henderson respectively, and now getting signed north for Evansville. And here we are crossing over the Ohio River here as we're going to be entering into the state of Indiana soon. And we finally end here in the state of Indiana as we can see that Interstate 69 has respawned. It will take you up to Indianapolis. So with that, I'm going to be turning around and doing southbound US 41 Southern. So we begin here at the Indiana and Kentucky state line, where we do have a Welcome to Kentucky sign. So well done, Kentucky. Here we are crossing over the Ohio River once again. And I've heard that these bridges are going to be demolished soon, or that Interstate 69 is going to be crossing onto some new bridges. Anyways, after crossing the Ohio River, we're now meeting with US Highway 60 once again, which I will be doing a series soon, so stay tuned for that. And we're now getting signed 41 South to Interstate 69 and to Audubon Parkway for Madisonville. Here we join with Interstate 69 getting signed for Madisonville and Owensboro. Owensboro is because of the parkway there. And here's where we split off from Interstate 69 as US 41 is now getting signed for Morganfield, which is actually for Kentucky Highway 425, which I think makes sense because it'd be faster to take Interstate 69 to get to Madisonville instead of taking US 41 all the way down there. Here we meet with US Highway 62 once again as it's being signed for Central City and Dawson Springs. Skipping ahead to Hopkinsville, we're now going to be reuniting with US 68 as US 68 and US 41 are now going to be concurrent with each other. And this is where we split off from US Highway 68 as US 68 is going to be continuing towards eastern Kentucky, as US 41 is going to take south towards Guthrie and Springfield. And on our way to Guthrie, we actually pass by this pink elephant here, which I did feature in the original Yes 41 Southern video as well. Here in Guthrie, we meet with Yes Highway 79. And here we get a 1 line mileage sign telling us that we're going to be entering into downtown Guthrie in 2 miles. I mean, who needs to know about that stuff? I mean, except for locals. Like, this is just outright confusing. And we're now entering into the state of Tennessee, and sadly, TDOT does not give us a welcome sign here. All they're just telling us that we're entering into Montgomery County, Tennessee. Here in Adams, Tennessee, we'll meet with Tennessee 76 once again, as we're now getting signed for Nashville. And in this direction, we do get a proper directional sign. Here we meet with Yes Highway 431, as we're now getting signed for Nashville still. And here's where Yes 431 splits off from Yes 41, but we will reunite with it when we get closer to Nashville. Here in Rippletsville, we're meeting with Yes Highway 31W, and we're not going to be concurrent with it as we head towards downtown Nashville. And like I did with northbound 31, I'm going to be skipping this concurrency because, once again, we covered the 31 concurrency actually in our 31 series, which you can check out in the description below. So here we come back to that roundabout where Yes 41 and 70S are going to be splitting off from Yes Highway 31 here. Here we meet with Interstate 40 once again and 24 as it's being signed for Knoxville and Chattanooga respectively. And we meet with Tennessee Highway 155 on the outskirts of Nashville. And we're going to be continuing south towards Murfreesboro. On our way to Murfreesboro, we'll meet with Interstate 840 here, getting signed for Knoxville and Chattanooga. Here we meet with Yes Highway 231 and Tennessee 96, and Yes 231 will be joining 41 and 70S. Here's where Yes 231 splits off from 41 and 70S, and these shields actually look in better condition than they did when we did Yes 231. Here's where 70S splits off from Yes Highway 41, as Yes 41 is now going to continue south towards Manchester and Monteagle. Here in Manchester, we meet with Interstate 24 for another time. It gets good control cities. And on the outskirts of Manchester, we're now getting signed for Monteagle as our next primary, which I think is an alright choice. Anyways, here in Monteagle, we're now getting signed for Jasper, which is alright. That is where we reunite with 64 and 72. But our next mileage time, we now get McMinnville from 45 miles away, which I think is a good instance of favoring a state highway here because Jasper is significantly smaller than McMinnville. And plus we do meet a highway that does go to McMinnville. In Tracy City, we meet with Tennessee Highway 56, which is the road that will take you up to McMinnville, but TDOT decides to sign Colmont and Altamont instead, so there's no mention of McMinnville, sadly. But we're still getting signed south for Jasper still. Here we meet with Tennessee Highway 28, and we're now going to be concurrent with it as we head towards Jasper. And here's where we're going to be joining with 64 and 72 as we're going to be heading towards Chattanooga. And sadly, TDOT is only telling us about westbound 64 and 72 and not eastbound 64, 72, and 41. Skipping ahead to the Chattanooga area, we do get an NPS Highway 72 shield. And Yes 41 is going to be joining with 76 as we can see in the distance there. And here is that shields for 41 and 76 as they're going to be concurrent as we're heading out of the city of Chattanooga. Here we meet with Yes Highway 11 and 64 once again, and we're going to be continuing south towards Wingold in Georgia. But first, we actually pass through this very, very claustrophobic tunnel. There is a tunnel for the northbound lanes too, but this tunnel looks, I said once again, claustrophobic. Here we meet with Interstate 75 for the first time going this direction on US 41, and it gets good control cities because we're in Tennessee. Now we're entering into the state of Georgia, so let's see what Georgia has to offer on southbound US 41. In our first match shine, we do get Dalton from 23 miles away, which is a good choice. But further down the road, we're now getting signed for Tunnel Hill and Rocky Face. I have never heard of both of those places, so why in the world are they being signed? What happened to Dalton, which we were being signed for at the state line? Skipping ahead to Dalton, we're US 76 finally splits off from US 41, as US 41 is going to be continuing south towards Calhoun. But our next pilot shine, which is a one-liner, we get Resica from only 6 miles away. I'd like to see also Calhoun on here, G-Dot. Why do you love one-liners so much? Can you please tell me that? Why? Luckily here in Resica, we are getting signed for Calhoun, while Georgia 136 will take you over to Lafayette and US 27. And we see that G-Dot really loves mileage signs, as we get a one-liner in Calhoun, and then another one on the outskirts of Calhoun, and in Adairsville we get Cartersville. Anyway, skipping ahead to the Cartersville area, we're going to be reuniting with US Highway 411. And this is where US 411 splits off from US 41, as US 411 is going to continue northeast of here. Here in the northern Atlanta burbs, we're meeting with Interstate 285 once again, and we have no control cities for it. And after going through the heart of northern Atlanta, we're now reuniting with US Highway 19, and US 19 and 41 are going to be concurrent once again. On our way, we meet with US Highway 78, and in this direction we do have a proper shield for US 278. Why can't you do it for going northbound on US 41, G-Bot? Here's where US 78 and 278 splits off from us, as we're going to be joining with US 29 once again. And here is where US 1941 splits off from US Highway 29, as we're going to be continuing south towards Griffin. Here we meet with Interstate 285 on the outskirts of southern Atlanta. And this here is in Griffin, as we're now getting signed for Barnesville as our next control city, while US 19 is going to be continuing south towards Zebulon and Thomaston. For our next mileage time, we get Roberta from 42 miles away. So G-Dot is now favoring US 341 here, which I do not like at all, because Roberta only has like 1,000 people. That should be Forsyth here, or Macon, because US 41 is going to way bigger places than Roberta. So why do you like favoring smaller places, G-Dot? That is also another weird obsession with you. Anyways, here's the northern terminus of US Highway 341, and US 41 is going to be continuing south towards Macon. Here on the outskirts of Macon, we meet with Interstate 475, and for southbound 475, it is in the control city of Perry. You're arming with US Highway 80 here in the heart of Macon, and US 80 will actually take you over to downtown Macon, so it's pretty cool. Here we reunite with US Highway 129, and we're now going to be concurrent with it as we head south towards Warner Robins and Perry. Here's where we split off from US 129, as that'll take you down to Warner Robins, and we're now getting signed for Byron and Perry. In fact, our next mileage time, we get Byron on the top line from 9 miles away and Perry from 20. Also, this is like the tiniest mileage line I've ever seen. Here is we unite with US Highway 341, but we are not concurrent with it, as US 41 is going to continue south toward downtown Perry. For our next mileage time, we now get Unadilla from 15 miles away and Marshallville from 14. Once again, Marshallville is actually a place on a state highway. Like, you could have another place on US 41 on this mileage time. Please stop favoring state highways. This is starting to get ridiculous. Luckily, after splitting off from that certain state highway, we're now getting signed for Cordele from 9 miles away. Here in Cordele, we are now getting signed for Ashburn as our next control city. Our next mileage time, we actually get Tifton from 39 miles away, so that's a good choice. Here in Tifton, we meet with US 319 and 82 once again. And our next mileage time, we now get Valdosta from 24 miles away, which belongs on US 41. Here we meet with Interstate 75, and it just gets terrible control cities once again. After that short concurrency with Interstate 75, we split off from it as we're now getting signed for North Valdosta Road and Moody Air Force Base. I mean, at least the Air Force Base is listed on here, but I do not like that Kentucky treatment. On the eastern side of Valdosta, we meet with US Highway 221 and Georgia 31 here, as they're going to be concurrent with us. Here we meet with US Highway 84 and US 84 and 221 are now going to be heading into downtown Valdosta, while US 41 is going to continue south towards Jasper, Florida. But at Ram Junction here on the outskirts of Valdosta, we're now getting signed for Lake Park, which is still in Georgia. I mean, Lake Park still has like 1,000 people, but this is GDOT being provincial here. I prefer to see Jasper, Florida instead of Lake Park. But luckily, in Lake Park, we're now getting a one-liner for Jennings, Florida from 6 miles away. I want to see Jasper. Why is it so hard to sign Jasper, Florida, GDOT? Also, why are you signing Florida FLA instead of just FL? That's just weird. This is weirding me out. Anyways, here we are finally entering into the state of Florida. Our first mileage time in Florida, we get Lake City as our primary, which is a good choice. Once again, we have Tampa on 41. Here we reunite with US Highway 129 as we're not getting signed for White Oak and White Springs. What's happened to Lake City? Why are you not signing Lake City on? And we get Live Oak and White Springs as our primary US 129 and 41. Here's where US 129 splits off from US 41 as it's being signed for White Springs. No, I want to see Lake City. Lake Springs only has like 1,000 people. Lake City is infamous and is where we meet the signing. We do not meet anything important in White Springs. Anyways, here we meet with Interstate 10 and it's being signed for Jacksonville and Live Oak. Once again, that's where we meet Tallahassee. Here in Lake City, we meet with US Highway 90 here. And the next mileage time we get Gainesville as our primary once again for 49 miles away. And this time it is actually for US Highway 441, which will be 40 minutes. Here is that union with US 441, and we're going to be concurrent with it as we head south towards High Springs. Here we meet with Interstate 75, and it's signed for Alachua once again. I do not like that, as we're still getting signed south toward High Springs. Here in High Springs, we're now going to be joining with US Highway 27, and US 441 is going to be continuing south towards Gainesville. Here, still in High Springs, we actually get a mileage time with Tampa being signed from 142 miles away. So that is really cool. FDOT playing their usual cool tricks once again. Here we're joining with US Highway 27 and US 27 and US 41 are going to be concurrent as we head towards Williston. In fact, we do get Williston as our next primary from 21 miles away. And here in Archer, we now get Tampa as our primary from 118 miles. Hey, we saw that exact same distance as we were going on northbound US 41. Pretty cool. Here in Williston, we split off from US Highway 27 as US 27 will go south towards Ocala, while US 41 is going to be continuing south towards Inverness, Brooksville, and Tampa. In our next mileage time, we do get Tampa as our primary once again from 98 miles away. And this here is actually in Inverness, and we now get Brooksville as our primary from 23 miles away. Here in Brooksville, we meet with US Highway 98 once again. And trying to navigate through this town is absolutely like ugh. And after going through that mess of US 98 and US 41 in Brooksville, we get another mileage sign with Tampa as our primary still from 44 miles away. And we get a mention of Blanco Lakes too. On the outskirts of Tampa, we meet with Florida Highway 597 here, and sadly US 41 has no control city here, which kind of makes sense because we're about to enter into the northern Tampa suburbs. Here we meet with Florida Highway 580 once again, which is a cool road, and it will also take you over to Interstate 275. Here we meet with US Highway 92, and we're now going to be concurrent with it as we head through the heart of Tampa. And this is where we split off from US Highway 92, and we have no control city here, sadly. Here we meet with Interstate 4, you can sign for Tampa and St. Pete going westbound. And we can see all the way in the distance that eastbound is going to sign for Orlando. And here, when we meet the Summit Expressway, we actually get another mileage sign, and we now get Ruskin as our primary from 17 miles away. And here we are, meeting with Interstate 275, and sign for Interstate 75 and northbound for St. Pete respectively. And after meeting Interstate 275, we get another mileage sign with Fort Myers now being as our primary from 89 miles away. Here we meet the southern terminus of US Highway 19, and US 41 is going to be continuing south toward Bradenton. And here in Bradenton area, we meet with US Highway 301, and 301 southbound is now going to be concurrent with US Highway 41. Here's where US 41 splits off from US 301, which will take you into downtown Bradenton, while US 41 isn't really bypassing downtown, but will take you over to the beaches. Here, a ways down in Sarasota, we meet the southern terminus of US Highway 301. Anyways, and at Random Junctions just south of Sarasota, we're making sign for Lenox, Florida, and Gulf Beaches. Here in Punta Gorda, we meet with US Highway 17, its southern terminus here. And this is here in downtown Fort Myers, where 41 is being signed south for beaches, while Florida 80 and 82 will take you into downtown. And after going through Fort Myers, we get another mileage sign with Naples as our secondary from 29 miles away, and Miami as our primary from 137. Here in Naples, we're now getting signed south for Miami, which again makes sense because there's absolutely nothing between here and Miami. And that definitely reflects that here on our last mileage sign, as we get West Miami from 106 miles away and Miami from 110. And after going through the Everglades, we are now meeting with the Florida Turnpike here on the outskirts of Miami. Here we meet with the Palmetto Expressway, which once again will take you up towards the airport. Here we meet with Florida Highway 9 once again, or also known as 27th Avenue. And here's the southern terminus of US Highway 441 here, as US 41 is going to be heading into downtown Miami. And here we meet with Interstate 95, and 95 just gets north for nothing. But we do have a rim for 95 northbound. And this here, we finally end the US 41 journey at US Highway 1. And you might think this is actually current street view, but guess what? This is like from like 2008. This is what the junction looks like today. You can see that all the shields are replaced, and we have just these turn lane shields and all of this going on. It's super sad. but at least there was a end shield for US 41 at some point in time, so that is alright with me. So with that, we end US Highway 41 Southern and we move on to the way it should be. So these are all the places that I think should be signed on 41 Southern. Feel free to pause the video and take a look at this list, and if you want to talk about this list, please feel free to do so in the comment section below. I'd love to talk about. Or if you have your own list, please let me know again. I'd love to discuss you about with this list here. So that ends US Highway 41 Southern. Thank you all so much for watching this video on US Highway 41 Southern. I know it was a bit longer reboot than what I expected to be, but hey, I hope you got to learn a little bit more about this highway in an updated version of the video, as it was pretty fun to make. Anyways, here are my next few highways. If you have an intersection request for any of these upcoming highways, please let me know down in the comment section below, and I'll make sure to shout you out once these highways release. So, thank you guys once again for watching this long video, and I'll see y'all next week as we do US 74. Bye!